So I want to tell you about a car. It is 2010. It's dark out because it's always dark when you leave at that hour. I'm out of my house by 7, 6:30 or earlier, like sometimes 6, 5:30, 6 o'clock some days. And I'm sitting in traffic on the Lincoln Tunnel Express extension, heading towards the Lincoln Tunnel. I wasn't going through into New York, but I was going into New Jersey on the Jersey side. And I'm just not moving. Like hours. It took me 2 hours to get there. It's like, 15, 20 miles from my house, 2 hours to get home, right? 4 hours of my one life every single day spent in the car going to my job. And, if you've ever been in that traffic, if you know, right? And I want you to hear today what I was willing to do to get out of that car. Not what I wish, but what I was willing to do, because I would have done almost anything. I built my own business, right? I got out. I want to be really clear that part is a happy ending, right? I made some hard choices and I built this business, that eventually became what you see now. And I got out of the paycheck world, of the commute grind. And then I did something that I still can't fully explain. I built the commute again. Like I had visions of getting up in the morning and doing yoga and, drinking coffee on the deck and hanging out. And eventually that happened. But in the first couple years, oh my gosh, I different car, right? Same commute. Every morning I got up and got in, posting every day, chasing all the hooks, chasing all the numbers before I had coffee. And again, before I went to bed. And I remember my friends saying to me, like, are you going to go in the house? Like we'd go out to dinner and they'd be like, are you going to go in the house and like work now? I'm like, well, I'm going to check my email. And yeah, if I have to do something, yeah, I'm going to do that. Like nobody made me do this. There was no boss. There was no traffic. There was no Lincoln Tunnel that I was heading towards, right? This is something I created myself, right? Or I guess I just didn't know better, right? I climbed into it every single day for years. And it took just as much out of me as the commute on the road ever did. And the difference was that nobody was paying me for this one. Like I didn't magically have money in my account every Friday, right? So today I'm going to tell you how I got out of the second commute. And I'm going to warn you now that like the answer is so tiny that it's probably going to make you mad. The message I want you to hear from me is that what you're doing does not have to be constant. It has to be consistent. Welcome to the Good Girls Get Rich podcast. I'm your host, Karen Yankovich, and we talked a lot in the last couple of episodes about borrowing a stage and doing brave things and getting you in the room. And, it sounds like a lot, right? It doesn't have to be a lot, but it sounds like a lot. And then like the behind the scene, like the after party question then goes, okay, Karen, like now what, Karen? Like, do I do that every week for the rest of my life? Like what happens now? Because seen is a moment, right? Known is what you do with that moment. And it's not post more. Most of you are going to post less after you finish listening to this episode. So I'm not teaching this one at you. I'm kind of just telling you my story, what I did wrong, because I did it for years and I did it well. And it paid me nothing, right? So you're here. If you're listening to this show and you're following me in any way, shape, or form, you know that I think LinkedIn is the heart of all of this. When I left my job, I did what I knew how to do, right? I knew how to network. So I already knew LinkedIn worked. I had already built a business around, frankly speaking, on LinkedIn. So when it was time for me to be visible, I went all in, right? The way I go all in on everything, right? And that's the whole problem. Like I just didn't know that there was another way to do this, right? And my days looked like reports and algorithms and posting and hooks and what's the right time to post and the numbers first and last thing, you know what I mean? And the drafts at 11 p.m. and batching on Sundays and all the things that I was doing, right? And the part that made it hard for me to see that it needed to change was that it was working. The way I felt it was working. My followers climbed. Things were popping. I see you everywhere, and honestly, it feels good. It feels good to walk into a networking event and somebody goes, Karen Yankovich, I know you, right? It feels good. And that's what kept me doing that. But the reality is I was exhausting myself. I talk a lot about how I've created this synergy between my business and my life. But in the beginning, it was every waking moment. Do you know what I mean? It was every waking moment. So I had this like guilt when I was hanging out with my grandkids, or when I actually started counting the hours. Oh my gosh, like I would have been making more money if I worked at McDonald's, right? So ultimately, I realized that I needed to count what this was producing in cash in my bank account, right? And how many conversations I was having a week that led to more cash in my bank account. And honestly, I didn't need two hands. Right. I didn't need to do two hands for that. Right. I wasn't lazy. I wasn't vain. I was diligent. Right. Like I went all in. I took B school. I watched all the videos on YouTube, and I got that scorecard that everybody gives us. And I was good at it. I was really good at it. I wasn't failing at consistency. I was consistent as hell. Right. Like I did a blog. You can look on my website. There's still blog posts back to 2012 every single week. Right. I was consistent, but I was consistently doing the wrong things. And I'm telling you this about my story instead of telling you about a client, because I watch women do this every week, and every one of them thinks she's the only one who's tired of all of this, right? Everyone, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And it looked diligent. It looked like homework. And that was why it was so hard for me to see and so easy for me to keep doing. I was getting asked to speak at conferences, right? And like I said earlier, I'd walk into networking events and people knew who I was, but I wasn't hired enough, right? And I tried all the things, and I believe this still to this minute, believe this firmly that this works, right? It's just the recipe. We're just got to find the right recipe to and that recipe changes every year that goes by. Marketing changes, right? The atmosphere changes, not the algorithm. I don't want to talk about that, but the dynamic in the world changes. We're living in a crazy ass world right now. I'm recording this is 2026, right? The marketing world is way different than it was in 2012 when I was doing this. But what has stayed the same is that nobody's hiring you because they saw your billboard. They hire women they feel like they know, right? And knowing gets built in the small back and forth, in those conversations, the comments you answered, the follow-up you sent, the name you remembered, right? I was reaching thousands of people and touching none of them, right? So we're going to talk about like a 20-minute process that I eventually developed. And what happens is that 20 minutes touches 40 people, but I'm known by every one of those 40 people, as opposed to taking 20 minutes and posting all over the place and have 4,000 people who've seen me, but don't know me. Right? A couple of weeks ago, we talked about watering your money tree. That matters related to this today. A viral post is a flower. A relationship is a tree, and a tree continues to produce fruit. Right? Lightning has to strike twice. A tree just keeps growing. Okay. So the number that I started to track was, how was I going to put more of calls on my calendar? But I want to be really clear. I was not looking for hundreds of calls on my calendar. I was not looking like leads. This was not what I was looking for. I was looking for strategic calls on my calendar. If I have 6 calls on my calendar in a week, I want to convert 5 of them. And by the way, that's what I do. And that's what you can do too, if you're strategic on the front end. And these 20 minutes that I'm going to teach you, it seems like more work than just spamming your world with like automation tools, but then it puts all these crazy calls on your calendar that don't convert because they're not the right people. Okay. So what I do now, it has a name, right? It's a ritual. It's the middle move of our bar of the stage process, the engine of getting known. But I don't want this to be about a word. I want this to be about a number. And I'm going to say this again, because this is important. It doesn't have to be constant. In fact, it should not be constant, but it does need to be consistent. 20 minutes, a couple times a week. That's it, right? And while content is a thing, we're not talking about content here. We're talking about contact. Every minute of this 20 minutes is aimed at a person, not at an algorithm, not at a feed. Okay. 3 simple moves. All right. You ready? If you're driving, or you're somewhere where you can't, where you're on your walk with this, don't worry about it. It's all in the show notes, or you can come back and listen to it again. If you're sitting at your desk somewhere, get out your pen. Okay. First 5 minutes of this 20 minutes, tend to what's already yours, right? What's already yours. My LinkedIn inbox is the most valuable piece of real estate in my business. And is it filled with some spam? Of course it is, but so is my main inbox, right? My main inbox is I mean, it gives me palpitations, right? I have so many emails in there. My LinkedIn inbox, I'm on like white on rice, right? Because your inbox is not a scorecard. So if you again, tend to what's yours, reply to every comment, message like it's a conversation because it is a conversation, right? Say hello to whoever landed on your profile this week. Look at who viewed your profile and jump in, right? Somebody looked you up for a reason or came across your LinkedIn profile for a reason, and almost nobody follows up on that. And find a way to do it that's not like spammy, like, hey, you were looking at me. What's going on? Why are you looking at me? I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, first of all, even if you don't mention that they looked at you, but you reach out to them, like you already know they looked at your profile, right? So maybe reach out to them and say, hey, Mary, I'm, thinking about you. What's going on with you? Right. So follow up with the people that are in your inbox, not just your LinkedIn inbox. I mean, you have other platforms that you use, your DMs or your inbox, your actual inbox, but for sure, your LinkedIn inbox first. Okay. And just make sure that you're having conversations with people. Feel free to delete the things that feel spammy to you. You do not need to talk to everyone. Again, remember, if you get 6 people on your calendar, I want you to convert 5, right? So we want to be really intentional about who we're spending our time on. But if somebody looks at your profile, there's a reason for that, right? Be the person following up on that. And in the next 10 minutes, okay, so the first 5 minutes were tend your garden, tend what's already yours, right? The next 10 minutes, go where the audiences already are, right? Comment 5 real comments in this 20-minute period on the right people's posts. Dream your world. Not I love this, right? But a real sentence that shows what you know. Like this, the strategy on this is like a thoughtful comment on somebody's post is you borrowing her stage for 30 seconds, right? Her whole audience meets you for free. That's the borrow the stage method in miniature, right? But if you can't find 5 conversations to jump into, like obviously start with your wall. But if you can't find 5 conversations to jump into, I mean, hopefully you're saving people's names that you want to engage with, and you've got some strategy behind who you hang out with on LinkedIn. And that's another conversation. But for this conversation, if it's not easy in those 10 minutes to find 5 conversations to jump into, then go up to the search bar and type in whatever it is you're talking about that week, right? If you are talking about, if you're like a money mindset coach, then type mindset or money mindset into the search bar on LinkedIn and see who else is talking about that and jump into those conversations. Now you're getting in front of audiences of people that don't even know you, and maybe in front of their whole audience, but in front of this person who started this conversation who didn't know who you were 5 minutes ago, right? Go where the audiences already are on LinkedIn and spend 10 minutes commenting on posts. But again, real comments, conversational comments, okay? Real conversations with your real point of view, all right? It makes a difference. It makes a difference. And then the last 5 minutes, 2 warm opens. Follow up on a conversation that went quiet. Maybe you talked to somebody a couple months ago and they said, you know what, I'm taking my kids to Disney World. When I get back, let's do A, B, and C. And then you know what? You dropped the ball, they dropped the ball. You never did that, right? Follow up on a conversation that went quiet. Or maybe some real congratulations, a promotion, a launch, a milestone, right? No pitch anywhere near it. Okay. Voice note maybe, right? And then that's it. Timer's up. You're done. 5 minutes. Go live your life, right? Go live your life. While you're doing these 2 warm opens, I can't even tell you the opportunities I've gotten from these kinds of things. Like I'm thinking about somebody who wrote a book and I didn't know the person. And this is a couple of years ago, and I commented on their, congratulating them on the book. And turned out since I had last engaged with them, they had really jumped up high in an organization. And they brought me along with them. Because I jumped into a conversation and said, oh my gosh, congratulations on your book. It's such a big deal, right? It ended up being a huge opportunity for me. So these kinds of things can happen for you, right? If you're listening to this and you've got years of expertise, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it means your 20 minutes outweighs a beginner's 4 hours. I want to say that again. This is not a second job. This is not a second commute. This is 20 minutes. You have already put the time in. Take 20 minutes a couple times a week, right? For this I'm calling it like the expert visibility plan, right? Or whatever. I make that up. I made that up at this second, right? So I'm not really calling it that, but think of it that way, right? Your 20 minutes with your 20 years of expertise behind you outweighs a beginner's 4 hours. This is visibility that's sized for real life. Okay. You're not doing what I did. Or if you did what I did, now this is you getting out of that second commute, right? Now you're building a business on this little bit of visibility that's available to you. So the stage got you seen. This 20 minutes is how the room knows you after that mic goes cold. The stage with no follow through is one bright day and then nothing, right? A stage plus 20 minutes is one appearance that pays you year after year after year after year. So here's where you are in this story, right? Some of you are still in your first car, the actual job, the actual commute, right? Building, your way out on nights and weekends, which is, believe me, I remember those days, and we got to do it if we want to do it, right? And maybe some of you got out and you built the second commute without noticing, and this has been an uncomfortable half hour. And I'm sorry that it was uncomfortable, but also you're welcome because it's important that you hear this. You can do this, but you have to do it your way, not the way everybody else in the world is telling you how to do this. Either way, whether you're still in your commute or you've built your second commute or whatever it is, the exit's the same. It's 20 minutes a couple times a week. I promise you, if you do this, it's life-changing. It's business changing. And before I send you off to do it, let me just be honest with you about something. I teach this for a living, and trust me when I tell you, I'm preaching to the choir here. There are weeks that I don't want to open LinkedIn. I find myself sometimes sitting in the morning, like with my coffee, and sometimes I'll put something on that I've recorded on the TV or something I need to catch up on, and I'll open LinkedIn while I'm just kind of sitting on my couch, right? There are mornings that 20 minutes feels like 20 miles. Like I know the whole speech, I give the whole speech, and I still have to walk myself to the chair some weeks. So I'm not up here as the woman who finds this easy. It's definitely not easy. Sometimes I find myself, I'm really enjoying Threads lately. Come hang out with me on Threads. I'm really enjoying Threads lately, and I'm loving the conversations there. And I find myself having to kind of say, why am I on Threads? I need to be doing the same thing on LinkedIn because I know that's where the business is. And I know it's not as easy on LinkedIn as it is on some other platforms. But if you find the right conversations and you find the right rhythm, and 3 times a week for 20 minutes, that is 1 hour, right, out of your entire week. Just know that I'm here telling you that I do it anyway, even though I'm not always finding it easy, because I know what happens when I do, and I know what happens when I don't. And I'd rather do the 20 minutes, right? So for the next week, 3 windows of 20 minutes each, put it on your calendar. Like I would love you to calendarize this, not like put it on like it's appointments, not when I get to it, because when I get to it is, we know what that's a synonym for, right? And inside each 20 minutes, those 3 steps, reply to everyone, 5 real conversations, jump into 5 real conversations and 2 warm opens. And maybe nothing will happen week 1, and that's not failure. That's the point. The win is that the timer ran and the water flowed a couple times, right? Fruit is a later problem. So come into the Facebook group at LinkedInForWomenCommunity.com and post your couple windows, right? The actual times you did this. Let us hold you accountable. That's what the LinkedIn for Women community is for. And here's the thing I want you to carry out of this. It doesn't have to be constant. It needs to be consistent. 20 minutes, a couple times a week, aimed at the people instead of at an algorithm. The women will out-earn the women performing brilliance every single day. I've watched it too many times to call it luck. And I've watched it happen to me. I've experienced it personally, and my clients have experienced it time after time. And let me tell you something. They know. They're like, every now and then I'll be like, how many times did you do 20 minutes this week? Right? Like they know. Listen, the Jersey in me knows. I call them out and they know. And I know 20 minutes sounds too small to matter. And I know it doesn't feel like enough, but let me take you back to my car. This is so much easier than getting out of your house at 6 a.m. and commuting 2 hours to a freaking job, right? I did that way too many years. I know exactly how long 2 hours each way is, right? 20 minutes with your coffee is not the hard version of anything. It's the easiest thing I have ever asked you to do. The easiest thing. And it's the only one that's ever paid me consistently. So do it. What if I'm right? Right? What if I'm right? Do it for yourself, do it for your family, do it for your bank account. I want there to be more wealthy women in the world. And this is how it happens. We need to build the kind of networks that can pay us, that we need to hang out with the people that can change our lives. And this is how you do that. So if you want the whole path, how a borrowed stage becomes 20 minutes, becomes a client. Borrow the Stage Masterclass, seen, known, chosen, start to finish. Links in the show notes. Go register. That's the one thing I'm asking for you today, or go to shesyncedup.com/masterclass. Here's my challenge to you. For 1 month, don't perform. Just show up. Minimum twice a week for 20 minutes. And then look at your calendar after like week 2 or 3. Every single time you're tempted to post something loud instead of reaching out to someone real, I want my voice in your ear saying, what if I'm right? What if Karen's right? I'll see you at the table, and I'll see you on the way to the bank.